Greetings, Pokey people. Ichigo90 here. A short while ago, I made a video wherein I played Pokemon Emerald using only a single Wobbuffet. Now, while I think that video turned out good, I understand that most people on YouTube don't want to watch a 3-hour video like that. So, I made this shortened version of that video just to touch on the highlights of what happened. So, if you like this, then please like and subscribe. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is confirm that we have a hasty Wobbuffet. That way we can maximize the damage that counter is doing while also maximizing our speed for when we inevitably have to use struggle strats later on in the playthrough. So once we confirm that we do in fact have a hasty Wobbuffet, the battle against the Zigzagoon can begin. Now Tackle doesn't do much to Wobbuffet, but counter does almost half to the Zigzagoon. A second counter leaves the Zigzagoon down in red health, and a third counter finally ends the battle. So Professor Birch gives us the Wobbuffet and we call it Punchy, and then we can have our first rival battle against Brendan. Now his Mudkip is currently only level 5, so it only knows Tackle as a damaging move.
It's 9 hours.
Which again doesn't do much to Wobbuffet, but it crits and does a lot of damage to Mudkip if it goes all the way down to red health, and a second tackle and counter round ends the battle in our favor. So once we've gotten through that battle, we go and search for a female Ralts, which we catch in a Premier Ball and name Sapphire. Welcome to the team. You will be anyway, so moving on, we have Roxanne. And she opens up with Geodude. All of her damaging moves are physical, so we just have to use counter a lot. Geodude opens up using Rock Tomb, which isn't doing much on its own. Does lower our speed, but that doesn't matter at all. And a few rounds go by, and Roxanne heals up the Geodude. And then its Rock Tomb crits, and Wobbuffet is able to use counter to take it down. That brings out the second Geodude. It goes more or less the same way. Several rounds go by. Roxanne uses potions. Geodude uses Rock Throw. Wobbuffet takes it down to well below half health. And then a Tackle leaves it in red. This is where Roxanne uses a potion. Then after another Rock Throw, deals some pretty good damage to Punchy. Counter takes the Geodude down. Then Nosepass comes out and decides it's going to waste time using things like Block, Harden, and so on. And after it gets done with that, it begins to use Tackle. Now this doesn't do very much in either direction, but it's doing more to Nosepass than it is to Punchy. That's always good. It reveals that it does have an Oran Berry, which is rather annoying. Nosepass goes down to red health, but we only have one counter left. And Nosepass does use Tackle, and then the battle is finally over. So now that we have the first gym badge, we can move on to Brawly. And this battle did not go well at all. We get past the Machop, but then the Meditite obliterates us with its Focus Punch. So we have to try again, and we do get past Machop with more HP than before. Meditite goes for its Focus Punch again, and we do survive it. However, we only have 9 HP. That's more than enough to take out Meditite, but Makuhita's going to end the battle rather quickly, and it's clear that we have to skip over this for now and come back later. So on the way to the third gym badge, well, technically our second for this run, Brendan comes along and he challenges us to a rival battle. He opens it up with Lombre, which uses nature power. It turns into Swift, and counter does about a quarter damage to Lombre. It continues using its nature power Swift and goes down to just above red, but decides it wants to use Growl for some reason. However, it does quickly use nature power Swift again, which means counter is going to be able to take it down. So Brendan sends out his Marshtomp second, which decided it wanted to use all 10 of its Bide PP before actually doing damage. But once it got done wasting time, it did start using Water Gun, and Miracle gets off some pretty heavy damage. A second Water Gun takes it all the way down to red, and then a third takes it out. So his final Pokemon is going to be Slugma, which decided to use Yawn. Okay, so we're going to be asleep in a couple of turns, but maybe it'll use something else before that happens. No, it uses Yawn again. So while we're asleep, Slugma uses Ember, and then I guess he was thinking we might wake up again because he goes for Yawn again. So after that, he uses Ember, and Punchy wakes up and takes Slugma all the way down to about half. Then he goes for another Ember, and the battle is finally over. So now we can move on to Watson, but before that, Wally challenges us to a battle that isn't even worth discussing, so let's just move on to Watson. Now, Watson opens up with Voltorb, which can use self-destruct, and that's really annoying, and I don't want to go through that. However, we eventually do get a run where Voltorb uses Spark instead of self-destruct, and Miracle takes Voltorb down well below half health, and he uses Spark again, so Voltorb goes down without using self-destruct, which is always good for us. After that, Electrike's next, and it uses Shockwave, and Miracle is going to take it down also to below half health. Then it uses another Shockwave, which ends this particular round of the battle. So after that, Watson is going to send out his Magneton, and this thing likes to go for Sonic Boom a lot. So we use counter, and it's a fixed damage move, so it does 20 damage to us, and it's going to do 40 damage back to Magneton. After that, he's going to use Shockwave, and Mirror Coat's going to finish this one. So Watson's final Pokemon is going to come out. It's Manectric, and we eat our Orange Berry as this particular round of the battle starts. Manectric then sets up a bunch of howls, but then goes for Shockwave, which doesn't benefit from Howl. So Miracle does most of the damage to Manectric before it eats its Citrus Berry. And at this point, if it uses Quick Attack, we lose, so I select Mirror Coat because I think we can survive Shockwave. We do, and then we win the battle against Watson. So now we have 2 gym badges. We can go on to Lava Ridge to get our 3rd, but before we can do that, we have to fight Maxie. So Maxie leads off with Mightyena. It's a dark type. It knows Bite. Its dark types are immune to Mirror Coat. Bite's a special move in this gen. So all of that comes together and we have to use Struggle. So I had to EV train our attack, and it still wasn't doing much to Mightyena. However, at the same time I was EV training attack, I was able to acquire a King's Rock, so we got some flinches off on Mightyena. And I think that mattered a lot, because after that turn of flinch, we got a clutch critical hit, and Mightyena went down as Zubat comes out. Now we don't have a way to restore PP mid-battle, so we have to continue struggling. The good news is that Struggle is doing much more to Zubat than it did against Mightyena. And for some reason, Maxie decided not to heal, so we were able to take Zubat down in about 3 hits. However, that luck did not continue as Struggle did very little to Camerupt. I think less than it did to Mightyena, but a clutch crit sealed the deal and we defeated Maxie. So with all that out of the way, we can move on to Flannery. Now she led off with her Numel, which always, they have set leads. And it opens up with Sunny Day. Now that burned a turn that I would have rather not, but it ended up not mattering because the next turn it used Overheat, which did enough damage to us that Mirror Coat was able to take it out in just one single hit, which kind of made up for it. So Flannery sends out Slugma next, and Slugma decided it wanted to set up Light Screen, which doesn't make any sense considering that we're using Wobbuffet. I don't know why it did that. But then it also uses Overheat, and just like Numa before it, it does enough damage that Mirror Coat can take it out in one hit. So Flannery sends out her own Camerupt, which for some reason only goes for Tackle. I don't know why. Surely this thing has Eruption. It's a volcano. It's a camel that erupts. Surely it has Eruption. But it doesn't do that. It just goes for Tackle. And eventually one of them crits and Punchy's able to take it out with Counter. So then comes Torkoal. And this thing put us through an annoying battle that involved attract shenanigans. But eventually, Body Slam crits and Counter is able to work through the attract and end the battle, and now we have 3 gym badges. So normally Norman would be next, but he won't fight us until we have 4 badges, so it's time to go back to Brawly. So Brawly's lead is Machop. And Machop does some rather annoying stuff before Brawly heals it all the way back to full with the Super Potion. But then it uses Seismic Toss, which takes it down to below half health. Then uses a second Seismic Toss, and Punchy takes it out completely. So the second Pokemon is Meditite. Meditite sets up a whole bunch of bulk ups in a row before using Focus Punch, which does way less to us than it was doing before, but Counter is still able to take it out in one hit. And that just leaves Makuhita. Makuhita is a little bit less annoying than Meditite, but also kind of more at the same time. But in the end, all the bulk ups it uses were for naught, as one final vital throw gives us the damage to get the Knuckle Badge. Which means we can finally take on Norman. Norman's lead is Spinda, which likes to use Confusion. However, we open up with Counter anyway, just in case it decides to use Facade, which it does. And despite our HP bar barely moving, we're able to deal a little bit over half. But now, because it's taken this much damage in one hit, we use Safeguard and block the incoming Teeter Dance before another Facade takes down the Spinda. That leaves Vigoroth, which has a tendency to only use Slash. So of course we go for Counter, and of course Slash doesn't crit, but after a couple of them, Vigoroth also goes down. That just leaves the Slacking. No, it doesn't. There's a Linoon up next. What am I talking about? Read the script! Anyway, we play around Truant and some healing, and finally we are able to take down the Slacking. And now, that does actually leave only the Linoon, which uses Slash, and Counter takes it down to well below half. Well, maybe not well below. However, it doesn't matter because Linoon follows it up with Headbutt, and then Counter takes down the Linoon. So after dealing with Norman, we go to the Weather Institute, we deal with Team Aqua. After dealing with that, we go out to face Brendan. Now he leads off with his Lombre just as before. And Lombre is a little more annoying this time. It switches between Nature Power and Absorb. But in the end, we hit a Nature Power Swift with Counter, and Lombre goes down. He sent out his Slugma next, and after a few turns of trying to be annoying, it crits with Ember, and Mirror Coat ends that particular round of the battle. Ember, crit, Mirror Coat, and now we are finally on to the Marsh Tom. So I think this thing's going to go for Water Gun, but instead it goes for Mud Shot and gets some free damage on Punchy. However, following that, Marshtomp uses Takedown. The Takedown crits, and Counter is able to take all the damage away from Marsh Tom. So now we can go face Winona, but the first attempt ends when Swablu uses Perish Song. We are not going to be able to win within the 3 songs that Perish Songs allows. So we reset and try again. Attempt number 2 goes much better than attempt number 1, as Swablu only uses the aerial ace and goes down rather quickly. Tropius lasts a little bit longer than the Swablu did, but then a Solar Beam, which it's able to use in 1 turn because it also has Sunny Day, takes the Tropius down. Pelipper comes on in and is incredibly annoying because it loves to spam Protect for some reason. However, it does eventually decide it wants to use Aerial Ace. And when it does, that Aerial Ace crits, and Counter is able to finish off the Pelipper. Now then Skarmory follows up, and Skarmory decides to be actually nice to us and use Steel Wing, which means that Counter is going to do well over half damage to Skarmory, and then a second Steel Wing finishes that particular battle, which leaves the famous Dancing Altaria, which lives up to its reputation by strutting its stuff around the battlefield instead of actually, acting like it's on a battlefield. However, it does eventually attack, and when it does, Counter deals heavy damage to the Altaria, which responds by eating its berry. However, it fails to take us out on a second attack, and the battle is over. That's 6 gym badges in our pocket. So before we can head off to the 7th gym, we have to deal with Team Magma again, this time in their hideout. However, it's a little bit less annoying than it was before because this time Mighty Enna opts for Takedown instead of Bite, so we can actually rely on Counter to take it down rather quickly. Boom. So then Crobat comes out. And despite being rather annoying to deal with, the bite that was intended to give it an edge over the psychic typing ends up proving its undoing through Mirror Coat. That just leaves Camerupt, which wants to forget that any of this is happening and uses Amnesia. However, after that, it goes for Earthquake, which fails to take out Punchy and provides Counter enough damage that it's able to win the battle. So you might be thinking that now we can finally go to Mossdeep Gym and battle Tate and Liza, but no, we have to deal with Team Aqua next. And that means battling this guy whose name I refuse to remember because he's not Magma Admin Courtney. He leads off with Mighty Enna, which has dark moves again, meaning we have to use Struggle. However, it's nice enough to give us Swagger, which boosts our attack by 2 stages, and we take it out rather quickly. Then Golbat comes out. And after multiple turns of Bite causing flinches and us hitting ourselves in confusion, proves that this guy is a complete hacker. However, he's still not good enough to beat us. Although I'm pretty sure at Magma Admin Courtney would have been good enough to do that because she's just that good. But anyway, it's on to Tate and Liza. They open up with Xatu and Claydol. And on the first turn, Xatu immediately starts setting up Calm Mind while Claydol uses Earthquake. Now, Sapphire finally makes an appearance in this video, but she's only ever going to try to teleport because she's not allowed to attack because this video is about Punchy. So, Claydol opens up with Earthquake, and Punchy gets off some massive damage on the Claydol. We do have the Shell Bell to restore health, and that's actually going to be very important for this battle. But anyway, Xatu takes Sapphire down with a Psychic attack before Claydol uses another Earthquake, which allows Punchy to take the Claydol down. Now, Sapphire might get her own video someday, but her cameos are always appreciated around here. So with Claydol down, Solrock comes out, and eventually Punchy is able to take it down to red health. Now this is actually beneficial to us because Tate and Liza use a Hyper Potion on Solrock as Xatu finally attacks Punchy, allowing Mirror Coat to take the Xatu down. Now following this, Lunatone is going to come out and it's going to open with Psychic, followed by a Solar Beam from Solrock. However, Mirror Coat, due to the way it works, is only going to bounce the damage just from Solar Beam back to the Solrock and nothing else. However, that's fine because Lunatone is going to use Calm Minds from here on, and Solrock is going to use a Sun-boosted Flamethrower, and Mirror Coat takes the Solrock down. And then Shell Bell restores just enough health that we can tank a Psychic from Lunatone and Mirror Coats its Psychic attack back at it. We now have 7 gym badges. But before we can go do the final badge, there's still a couple of things we need to do. The first of which is this double battle with Steven against Maxie and Tabitha. Why isn't it Courtney? It should be Courtney. Anyway, Steven sends out his Metang against Mightyena and Camerupt. So we had to use Struggle again, and it's not doing very much because it never does. However, on this opening turn, we're the only ones trying to do damage. Regardless, we eventually take out Maxie's Mightyena, and then he's going to send in his Camerupt, and shortly after that, Steven's Metang is going to take out Tabitha's Camerupt, which is going to be replaced by Golbat. Anyway, after that, we struggle for several more turns, during which time Metang is going to be taken out. As you can see, Struggle is not doing very much. So then Skarmory finally decides to be helpful and take out the Golbat, and that leads to one of the most hilarious things that happened in this entire run. Tabitha's final Pokemon is his Mightyena, which gets off Intimidate, but then Camerupt uses Earthquake, which does nothing to Skarmory due to it being a flying type, but takes Mightyena all the way down to red, just before Wobbuffet gets off a struggle and Mightyena goes down before it's able to do anything. So after a few more turns, Maxie's camera goes down and is replaced by Crobat, which actually managed to last longer than I thought it would, but eventually it does go down and we're able to move on. So with the magma stuff finally closed out, we go to the underwater cavern to meet Archie and see him making goo goo eyes at a giant fish. He doesn't appreciate that and challenges us to a battle, sending out his own Mightyena. This lasts a while, but after a few turns, takedown counter takes out Mightyena. That's followed up with Crobat, which is still annoying. This thing is fast, it knows Confuse Ray, it's just a nightmare to deal with. But eventually the bites that it was relying on were used against it as Mirror Coat takes it out. That sends in his ace Pokemon Sharpedo. And thanks to Slash and Counter, it doesn't last nearly as long as the other two. And we're finally done with this Team Aqua nonsense. That means that we are only one badge away from taking on the Elite Four. And now we have to use Struggle again because this guy has Crawdon and it's a dark type for no reason. Thankfully, Struggle's able to do half damage to Luftis. And we spent a lot of time getting leftovers for this battle. Yeah. Anyway, Love dismissed the Sweet Kiss and went down after 2 turns. Crawdont did not. It did, however, miss several of its crab hammers, which meant we were able to take it out at full health going into Whiscash. And something weird happened here. Struggle crit and did about half to the Whiscash. Earthquake doesn't do much to us. But then Struggle crit again? And left it on like 1 HP. Now Earthquake still isn't doing much to us, which is weird. But then a third crit in a row happens. Anyway, so yeah, that was weird. But this crit chain ended with Celio. Now it didn't last very long, but yeah, you know. So Kingdra comes out and was a very annoying Pokemon to deal with. Due to a combination of it refusing to attack consecutively and only having one damaging move, that was one war of attrition that it just wasn't able to win. So we have 8 gym badges. We're on our way to the Elite Four, but as we enter Victory Road, Wally comes up and swears he's ready to finally beat us in a battle. And to prove it, he sends out an Altaria, which starts dancing. Eventually, it does go for Aerial Ace and barely dents Punchy's HP pool, but then Counter removes all of Altaria's HP. So after the Cloudbird goes down, Delcatty comes out. And it puts up a decent fight. but then Miracote's able to take the cat out after waving its paws around, somehow gives it access to dragon breath. That was weird, but it happened. So after that, he uses Magneton, which decides its best option is using Tri-Attack, which somehow is a physical move despite its animation, showing that its damage comes from a combination of fire, ice, and electric. Regardless, Counter is able to take it out long before we are in any danger. So then the magnets are replaced by Roselia, which tries to use Toxic, but we saw right through that and blocked it with the Safeguard. After that, it decides it's actually going to attack us and is swiftly taken out by a couple of mirror codes. And the flower monster is sent packing, which just leaves Gardevoir. This thing wasted so much time cycling between Double Team, Future Sight, and Calm Mind, which turned this battle that should have just been UGG into ah! However, we did eventually land a Mirror Code into a powerful Psychic and put an end to one of the most frustrating battles so far in the playthrough. So we finally make it to the Elite Four. And our first match is against Sydney, who uses Dark types, and leads off with the Mightyena. Dude, everybody and their cat has a Mightyena. However, we eventually struggle this thing down. And it only cost us about half of our HP to do it. So then Shift Tree comes out, and Struggle is not doing a lot because we're a Wobbuffet. However, Shift Tree takes pity on us and uses Swagger, which means our next struggles are going to do more damage. But even so, Shift Tree manages to hang on with 1 HP, which happens a lot. It's annoying. Stop it! Of course, that doesn't last for very long, and Cacturn comes out to replace Shift Tree. And Struggle actually does a lot of damage to this thing, mostly thanks to the Swagger boost. But then Sydney sends out Crawdont. Which actually ends up taking more damage than I thought it would. And eventually, we land a crit and take it down. Which just leaves Absol. Now, this is Sydney's ace Pokemon, but it eventually gets taken down. It's kind of a glass cannon, so good for us. However, now we have to deal with Phoebe. Phoebe leads off with a Dusclops that knows Protect and Curse, which it used multiple times in multiple different attempts. However, eventually, we managed to get a run where Dusclops doesn't use Curse. Which leads us into the first Banette, which for some reason just spams Grudge. Yeah, I don't know why it did that. But it went down without putting up too much of a fight. And we're able to go into the second Banette at full health, and I still don't even know what Grudge does. I know what Curse does. Stop saying words wrong! Well, the second Banette tried to use Shadow Ball, but that didn't work and it went down, which sent us into the second Dusclops. And this thing used multiple different shadow balls and an ice beam, but ultimately wasn't good enough to get the win, which left Sableye. Sableye is significantly less bulky than Dusclops, and it only took 3 hits for it to go down. The first hit did over just under half, the second left it in red, and then the third finished off Phoebe, which meant it was time to go to Glacia. And we don't have to use Struggle anymore. We were able to use Ethers and Lepa Berries to restore our PP, which meant we could actually do damage. So the first Celio kept using Body Slam, so we kept using Counter, and Celio went down, which brought out the first Glalie, and after only like 1 or 2 Crunch Mirror Coats, it was able to go down pretty quickly. The second Glalie came out, and this one tries to use Shadow Ball, so we went for Counter and took it out rather quickly, which brought out the second Celio, which was a little more annoying, but after a few rounds of double edge and Counter, it fell to Punchy the Wobbuffet. Oh yeah, it also tried to use a track, but that actually didn't matter. The Walrein came out and got some good damage. It almost beat us, but of course almost doesn't mean anything. It went down to an Ice Beam Mirror Coat, which took us to Drake, the final Elite Four member. He leads off with Shelgon, who, despite trying to spam Protect for a while and a weird visual glitch that happened, we were able to win. Up next was the Flygon. And Flygon actually put up a decent fight, but went down to a couple of Earthquake counters. And then after that, he sent out what I think is supposed to be his ace, the Salamence. So I don't understand that order, but it doesn't matter because its Crunch attack finally allowed Mirror Coat to take it down. And then Drake decided to be annoying. He sent out an Altaria. And you already know that Altaria likes to dance more than it likes to attack. And while we do appreciate the added leftovers healing, it eventually had to go in for damage, and then Counter took it out rather quickly. And then Kingdra comes out and learned nothing from watching its friend, and danced, and danced, and danced. And then finally uses Body Slam, which, just like last time, Counter took it down in 1 hit. That just leaves Wallace, who is somehow in the champion spot despite being the 8th gym leader and will never be anything more than that. Anyway, Wailord comes out and decides to use Water Spout, at which time Mirror Coat takes it all the way down to red health, before it took itself out with Recoil from Double Edge. That's fine with me. So he followed that up by sending out Tentacruel. And after dodging Toxic by using Safeguard and a couple of Hydro Pumps, Mirror Coat takes that down too. After Tentacruel fell, Ludicolo came out and it put up a decent effort. But eventually a Surf Mirror Coat finished it off as well. Wobbuffet just can't be stopped. So Wishcash came out next and tried its best, but an Earthquake counter was able to finish that job. Wallace's next attempt at beating us was with Gyarados. And Intimidate doesn't matter. We're a Wobbuffet. All we do is counterattack. And he swiftly figured that out after another Earthquake counter took down Gyarados. Wallace's final Pokemon is Milotic, another Serpentine Pokemon that evolves from a basic fish. I wonder if that means anything. Well, it doesn't matter because Surf Mirror Coat put Wallace back in his place, teaching him that he will never be champion of anything. The real champion is Steven Stone. He opens up with a Skarmory that knows Toxic. Eventually, we do get a run where we avoid that Toxic, and it goes down to counter Steel Wing. Steven's next Pokemon is Cradily, which opens up by using Ancient Power, and Ancient Power gets the Omni Boost. That would normally be frustrating, but we're a Wobbuffet. We like when our opponents have high attack. So I followed up with that Ancient Power by using Ingrain, which normally would be annoying. But then it uses another Ancient Power, and in combination with the Omni Boost it got before, counter takes it down. So with that being done, Steven then sends out his big, scary Metagross, which uses Shadow Ball and does massive damage, and that wasn't even a crit. But then counter's able to take it out in one hit. Claydol comes out and puts up much more of a fight than Metagross did, mostly because it was just able to survive. But eventually, an Earthquake counter is able to get rid of it. At which point, Steven sends in Aggron, which decided it wanted to spam Solar Beam, which I always forget that Aggron can even learn. But then it goes down to Mirror Coat. That leaves just Armaldo. Armaldo leads off with a Slash, and counter is going to take it down to below half health. After a round of leftovers healing, Armaldo uses Ancient Power. And then just one final counter, and we've defeated Pokemon Emerald using only Wobbuffet. We've defeated Steven Stone, the true and only champion of Hoenn. And folks, this run took 113 hours and 35 minutes to complete. That time doesn't even count the time that I lost to resets. And I had to drastically summarize most of the battles and even leave out a few that are in the original video entirely. So if you want to see the full turn-by-turn recap, it'll be linked right here. Or it will be soon, I don't know. Anyway, I'll get to work on the slack off video soon. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Go watch the original. Until next time, I'm Ichigo90, and I am blasting off again.